Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to More Than You Think, lifting the lid on careers in waste and recycling. My name is Alison Price. I am the CEO of the Waste Recycling Industry Queensland, or RIQ as we call ourselves. We're the peak industry body for the industry in Queensland, representing 100 businesses who process about 97% of the state's waste and recycling. We're so pleased to have you join us today. Whether you're actively job hunting, considering a career change, or simply curious about what opportunities exist in this sector, you're in the right place. The waste and recycling industry is far broader and more dynamic than many people realize. It spans frontline operational roles, environmental and safety leadership, logistics, advanced resource recovery, workforce solutions, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Today, you'll hear directly from professionals working across that spectrum. I wish to begin today's webinar by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands, seas, and waters throughout Australia and pay respects to elders past, present, and future. Before we get going with the discussion, I've got a brief overview of the tools available for you to ask questions during the webinar. So at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you should see 5 icons, including chat, raise your hand, and Q&A. With chat, you can send messages to everyone or just the webinar hosts. If you have any technical issues during the webinar, you can use the chat tool to message Emma, who is listed here as Emma Tech Support, and Emma will do her best to assist you. If you want to say something during the webinar, you can use the raise your hand button. Please keep in mind that once your audio is enabled, all the attendees will be able to hear you as well. And finally, the tool that will probably be used the most, Q&A. Use this to type any questions to be answered at the end of the presentation or during the panel. If someone else has already asked your question, you can upvote your question so that we can prioritize that question. Please feel free to ask questions during the presentations and during the conversation. Our panelists would love to be able to answer them for you. Today's session will be recorded and it will be made for you available for you to access on demand. So I'd now like to introduce today's moderator, Alex Bolte. Alex is a board member of RIQ and also the Queensland Manager for Envirocom. As Queensland Manager, Alex leads Envirocom's Queensland's operations, working closely with clients and operational teams to deliver integrated waste management and resource recovery solutions. Envirocom partners with businesses and local government to improve environmental outcomes, compliance, and sustainability performance, making Alex exceptionally well placed to guide today's conversation about careers in the sector. Alex will guide the conversation and then introduce our panel of industry leaders who will share their insights and experiences. Alex, over to you.
Thank you, Alison. It's my pleasure to introduce our panel. We've got a fantastic group of professionals today representing different parts of the waste and recycling sector. We're joined by Benjamin Nodge, or BJ, Plant Manager at WRIQ. BJ manages day-to-day operations at a resource recovery facility, leading teams on site and ensuring materials are processed safely and efficiently. Then we've got Peter Rutherford, HSE Manager at BMI. Peter oversees health, safety, and environmental systems, playing a critical role in keeping workers safe and ensuring compliance across operations. We also have Lacey Webb, founder and CEO of Resource Hub, waste woman extraordinaire. I'm just going off script a little bit here. Lacey leads an innovative business supporting the industry through technology and smarter data solutions that improve resource recovery outcomes. We're also pleased to have Natasha Breyer. She's the recruitment manager at JJ's Waste and Recycling. Natasha leads talent attraction and workforce planning for one of Australia's largest privately owned waste and recycling companies. Matthew Dyer is a business development manager at Resource Co. Matthew works closely with industry and government partners to develop sustainable resource recovery solutions, helping divert waste from landfill and create valuable alternative fuels and recycled materials. And finally, Faith Farrell from a talent acquisition specialist at Sims Metal, which is a global leader in metal recycling and the circular economy. Faith works closely with teams across the business to support workforce development and organizational growth. So, together, this amazing panel really does reflect the diversity of careers available in our sector, from frontline operations and safety leadership to recruitment, innovation, and global recycling markets. So, let's jump into our discussion, team. I'd like to do a quick whip around the room to start with, and just 30 seconds from everybody. For someone new to the waste and recycling industry, what does the sector actually look like day to day? And maybe what are some of the most common misconceptions? Peter, I'd love to jump to you first, please. We got Peter. You might be on mute, mate. It was
of course,
bound
someone's
to
got to do
happen.
it, and I'm going to do it
Someone's got to do
first.
it.
Of course. So what I was saying when you couldn't hear me, every day really is quite different in the industry. You know, there's cyclones, there's pandemics, but people still want their waste to disappear, and so the trucks are going to keep on coming. And in the industry, we just have to deal with that. Even if the place is on fire, which literally happens every day, we've got to find a way around it and implement something safe to safely navigate that. So even when you really think you've seen everything, have every conceivable solution in place, something different will happen. And honestly, it could make a great reality TV show. Although you couldn't use that tagline of the season ends, because waste season doesn't end.
I love that so much. Faith, what about you?
Yeah, I think you said that really well. I think the industry is so much more diverse than you might think it is, and the different types of roles that we have within the business, or across the different businesses are, really different from, hands-on operational positions. There's so many different types of machines that people operate, maintenance, engineering, and then we've got safety, and then we've got corporate positions, sales. So there's just so much more that goes into it than you might realize. And there's just a real diversity of roles.
Matt, how about you?
One of the joys of the industry is every day is different. So yeah, just to extend on, I guess, what Peter and Faith said, I think there's a big misconception that this industry just works like clockwork. People see their wheelie bin get picked up every week, same day, around about the same time. It's not the reality of the industry. There's a lot of moving parts. So every day is different for me. I guess from a sales point of view, I get to speak to different clients in different industries and view different sites and facilities. So one of the things that I really love about this industry, no 2 days are alike.
Yeah, I can definitely resonate with that. No 2 days are the same. It's just, waste touches every single other industry as well. BJ, how about you?
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Yeah, I agree with the sentiments of the other panelists so far. It's a really unique industry, as you said, as it touches every other industry in some capacity. So, as Matt said, it's not just the bins out the front of your house. It's industrial waste. It's different products that are byproducts of different manufacturing. So yeah, every day is different and presents different opportunities as well. But I think it's just sort of it could be a unique perspective as well for us that are part of this panel, because this is what we know. But the general public, broadly speaking, don't have much scope beyond seeing their bin get picked up and waving at the garbo and giving them a six-pack at Christmas. So there's a lot of things in the background that happen, including my sort of specialty is around high volume recycling. So a lot of people don't even have an idea that this sort of volume of recycling is taking place in Australia, let alone at all. So yeah, I think agreeing with the other panelists, as well as sort of touching on the optics from the general public as well around, what really goes on in the industry is much bigger than the general public might know.
Yeah, absolutely. Tash, I think you could probably build on that from your perspective.
Absolutely. I think from a perception perspective, a lot of people think waste and think smelly, dirty, maybe some negative things rather than energy, reuse, recycle, power, and essential services. Regardless of the weather, regardless of what's happening, it sort of confirms what others are saying. But these are jobs that are careers, which I think is really important for this panel and why we're all together to. It's not just a job. It's not just the bits that you see that we've got in our business. People have been with the company for 15, 20, 30 years. And they started maybe as an apprentice or as a labourer, and they've had that opportunity to grow and learn with innovation and with the way the world has changed, how much is different than it was. So I think that's really important from an industry perspective, and thinking about it from the outsider is don't just assume that what you've heard is to be true. There's so much more. And that career pathway is very, very genuine, and the opportunity is there if you work for it.
Yeah, fabulous. And Lacey.
I think the career pathways are interesting too, because to Tasha's point, there are lots of jobs that you don't know exist in the waste sector. Whether it's the person driving the ute behind the curbside truck at Christmas, picking up those 6-packs, that is a role that lots of councils will have. There's all of the other roles, and I'm lucky that I get to see a lot of those. There's accountants and data specialists and marketing people and, entire sales team and an incredible administrative powerhouse that makes the back end and the compliance sections of our industry work. And I think, I've worked in industry for 21 years now. You can have careers that may not be the career you're expecting in terms of drive truck, drive machine, deal with rubbish. You can still have careers in the sector that are hidden behind the scenes, but are solving so many problems just in very different ways. And that's one of the things I think is great about our sector.
I really like you touching on the point about problem solving there, and and I think I'd like to get my next question off to BJ, because I know he's had a really interesting start to his career. So BJ, from your perspective, what do you think employers are looking for? You might like to talk about your own growth and experience there.
Yeah, so I can sort of speak from both sides of it now that I'm in a position where I'm sort of in charge of recruitment for our site. But as Lacey mentioned, there's a broad spectrum that goes from labourers to technicians, engineers, all of it. And I started out as an entry-level yard man on the local waste collections contract, and prior to that, I was pushing bins with my dad on the weekend for his front lift run that he was a owner-driver for with Remondis in 2016. So I've sort of been around it a little while, over half my life now, and now I'm at the point where I'm running a brand new waste management facility that was built in 2023. It cost about $40 million. So, it's not about what diplomas you can hang on the wall as far as my perspective and the roles that I've been a part of. It's about, are you willing to have a go and apply yourself to an industry that you think you can thrive in? And just as an employer perspective, I think, you don't need much more than that, except for the ability to apply yourself to whatever you want to progress through your career in. I had no idea where the trajectory was when I was 17 years old, breaking down old wheelie bins to go for recycling. But, here I am 14 years later, not where I had expected to be, but sort of where I set myself up to be just via working hard and applying myself. So that's sort of the big touch points that I would have as far as what are we looking for in the industry. Myself specifically, I can follow my career path and say, well, I guess that worked in some capacity. But there's obviously lots of other avenues as well, as we've spoken about. There's plenty of roles and different ways you can get your foot in the door into the industry, depending on what your specialty is, what your interest is, and what your abilities are, and where you choose to focus yourself. So that's just sort of the perspective that I have, which is, I wouldn't say unique. I'm sure I'm not the only person that's done this sort of career path, but it's just a different avenue to perhaps go and get an engineering degree or becoming part of a sales team and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's those behaviors and attitudes that immediately kind of stand out, that in many instances are far more important than those pre-qualifications. Matt, what stands out for you in that?
Attitude is massive, but I think the big thing is personality. So I'm still learning every day. Again, one of the good things about the waste industry is it changes, constantly. So you can teach people things about the waste industry. You can teach, people how to speak to clients, but you can't teach personality and you can't teach attitude. So fitting into the team culture is also a really important thing as well too. I can really speak for ResourceCo. We have a fantastic culture here. Everybody works together, for a common goal. So I don't want to bring somebody in, whether they've had 20 years experience, they know everything well, they're best friends with all of the councillors and all of the major industries. If they're going to come in, they're going to upset the apple cart. So that's a really big thing when we're recruiting is, you can teach somebody all of these things. If you've got somebody that's determined, helps if they're a quick learner, then all of that stuff will come in time.
Yeah, Peter, I think you probably have an interesting perspective here as well, when it comes to safety. What do you look for out of any staff that are entering?
I think the awareness of safety is really important, especially in those entry-level roles. Typically, those roles are the highest exposure to operational hazards, and you're coming into it without having that extensive experience of being even able to identify them. So having that awareness and being able to go, see something and say that is a problem, and then dealing with it as it comes up is really important. These show up in really routine tasks. I talked about before about how every day is different, and a picker is some in our business anyway. Pickers, which essentially is someone who picks things off a conveyor line, and so many things can come up in a day. You can have flares, guns, all sorts of horrible things that could hurt you or the worker next to you, or it could cause a fire, and you've got to be aware of those things to not hurt yourself or someone else. Similarly, driving, yellow gear. It's not like driving yellow gear in dirt. Things change, things move, and you never know how it's going to act. So having that awareness is really important, and it's going to keep you safe and hopefully move you forward into a long-term career rather than just a short-term one where you might get injured or someone else might get injured. So.
Yeah, thank you. We have already got a hand raised for a question. Wayne, would you like to ask your question?
Alex, we might need to add Wayne into the chat.
Oh, here we go.
So he can ask the question.
Yep, there we go. I think you're unmuted now, Wayne. Go ahead. I might we'll come back to you, mate, in just a second, and see if we can try again. I'm going to move on to resumes and CVs and applications. Tash and Faith, I think that you probably look at most of these all the time. Tash, I might start with you. What's the most common mistake you might see in a resume for people applying for operational or maybe driver roles?
I think it's quite relevant in today's age, AI, and avoiding computer controlled resumes. I think it's a pretty hot topic outside of the waste and recycling industry, but I think it's a good opportunity just to say, don't fall into that trap too soon in your recruitment process or your application process. Especially if you don't have waste industry experience, what we talk about is skill versus will. So what skills do you have that are transferable from another industry that are going to be attractive to an employer in the space, versus what are you willing to learn, or how hard are you willing to try to get upskilled to do that? So read the job ad really well. Make sure that you're not popping in things that aren't relevant or slang or code in an industry that we just won't understand. I liked Peter talking about the yellow machines and the pickers and, how we call things, front lift, OHL, side load, side lift, domestic. Like there's all these terms that you'll learn from the industry eventually. But on your CV, just talk to us about your licenses, your skills that you believe are transferable. Use the spell check. Get one of your nearest and dearest to have a bit of a look at it before you push send, and don't rush. This is your first look. First impressions really, really do count. So I think take the extra time to think about the job you're applying for. Is it something you're interested in? Is it something that you've got transferable skills for? And then put your best foot forward.
Yeah, thanks, Tash. And I think that transferable skills point comes to answer one of the questions from Giman about and Kieran, sorry, about some people might feel like they're overqualified for a position, but how do they communicate that they've got transferable skills that, if you've got a PhD, for example, how do you get your foot in the door in somewhere when you've been focused in academia? And I think that it's those transferable skills. Faith, is there anything that you can add to that, or my original question around common mistakes that you see?
Yeah, I think for me, something that I see quite often is CVs that are either too complicated with too much included, or CVs that are too, they don't have enough info on your CV. So the things that we would really be looking for a driver or an operational role is we want to know what tickets and licenses do you have? What types of machines have you operated? And we want to make sure that that's really clear and really easy to view on your CV. So really clearly pop it at the top, make it concise. But then I also find on CVs that some applicants might put down machine operator and then the company and then not include anything else. And we want to know, okay, different companies have different job titles for different roles. So what are the key things that you did? Were you involved in anything else, any safety, any customer service? Are there any other transferable skills that you can mention there? And Natasha, you mentioned this before, but really just highlighting that you want to tailor your CV to the job. We want to know that you're specifically interested in this particular role and in this particular company. So just tailor it slightly for that particular job. I think that's a really big one for us. What was your second question, Alex?
What should job seekers highlight if they don't yet have any particular industry experience, or they're coming from a background of academia, or maybe even if they're really, really early in their career with not much to draw on, from a work history?
Yeah, transferable skills. That's the biggest thing. I think we'll keep coming back to that throughout this webinar, but you might have way more transferable skills than you might realize. So it really just comes back to review the job ad and really pull out what are the key things that the company is looking for. And then again, just tailor your CV so it highlights those things throughout your resume. So it's really aligned with the job. And, there's lots of things that you might not realize are transferable skills, but especially for our industry, working in operational roles, any customer service, any hands-on experience, any working in, warehouses or construction, physical environments, all of these types of things are transferable skills. And you can come from a completely different industry, but have, customer service or have, hands-on experience. So really come back to reading the job ad and highlighting the transferable skills.
Yeah, perfect. We might move on to a bit of discussion about interviews engagement. I do just want to acknowledge that I can see the questions that people are popping up, and I love how curious people are already. So thank you so much. I'm going to group a couple of those together after the ones that I've kind of got on my agenda at the moment, but we will get around to answering everybody. So interviews and engagement. Lacey, what makes a really strong candidate at your organisation? What are you looking for?
Look, I am always looking for people who want to know about the job and want to know about the people they work with and want to know what's going to make their day enjoyable. Sometimes you find when you have candidates interviewing, and whether it's interviewing for my company or whether we're helping out our clients, the questions that come across that are all about the individual tend to make me think that they're not interested in what we do, they're not interested in the whys of what we do. So any candidate who comes in and wants to actually know about the job and know about the people and know about the outcomes, and even I really like when people want to know about where their career can go, what might be on their path down the track. I think that shows me that people have got a passion for the industry, or at least have an interest in the industry to start, even if they don't know they're passionate about it yet. Showing that you're interested is the most important thing you can do, I think, in an interview, especially in a sector that is so diverse, because there are so many avenues you can take.
And so what that question about, where can the career go? Is there anything else that might signal to you that someone would be a really good long-term hire?
Absolutely. Look, if I find that someone shows a natural facilitation approach, that they're naturally either they're getting information about what their day could look like. If I find someone who demonstrates that they have an interest in learning new things, if I find someone that just is interested in rubbish, honestly, if I find someone that's super passionate about change saving the world, maybe not so much. But if they're super interested about rubbish, that usually is an indicator for me that it doesn't matter what role they start in, they're going to stay in industry, because I find that the resource recovery sector is an industry that's quite close-knit. There's lots of opportunities by building relationship. So even, and I have a team of introverts, even those people who are more introverted and actually aren't as outgoing can still demonstrate an interview through talking about, the things that maybe interest them in what I've just said, or asking questions about, what happens in this scenario. They're the people who are going to stick around in industry. And they're usually the people that I was more likely to hire, because if the waste sector, it's not for everybody, although I think it should be. If the waste sector seems like it's for you now, you'll be stuck. You don't leave. Once you're in the door, you never go.
I hear you. Matt, what are you looking for when you're hiring?
It's funny what you said there, Lacey, about being interested in rubbish, because it's genuinely true. I've got a passion. I love jumping into bins and pulling things out and separating it and seeing what's in there, and showing what difference I guess you can make to a client when it comes to their sustainability, their recycling rate, but also dollars and cents as well too, because generally speaking, it's a lot more expensive to send things into a hole in the ground than it is to recycle it most of the time. But I spoke before about the team culture, I guess, is a really, really important thing. I guess the other thing for me is a willingness to learn new roles and learn new things. I guess looking at the facility here, we have a lot of different roles, from picking stations to excavator drivers, forklift drivers, people on the weighbridge, that sort of thing. And since we opened our facility a bit over 12 months ago, we've seen people moving from a picking station into the weighbridge, and picking up tickets to learn how to operate machinery as well too. So it's always a big thing for me when somebody comes in. You can see the personality, you can see that they're really motivated, the sustainability focus, but they want to learn different parts of the business and different parts of the industry as well too.
BJ, same question.
Yeah, again, probably a common theme, but I agree, with what Matthew and Lacey has said. Like these are the small differences that would make an employer choose someone over someone else. So I can sort of speak from a scenario I've had recently, employing a new maintenance supervisor. So obviously, preventative maintenance at a plant like ours is a critical function, and the person leading that isn't right up the top of one of our necessary employees that needs to have their head screwed on, essentially. And I had two really, really strong candidates, and arguably one of the gentlemen had a slightly higher technical capability. But the difference in my decision came down to this other gentleman saying, "Hey, would you mind if we go for a walk through the plant so I can see the process flow and get his head around a little bit?" And then as we were walking back around the plant, the crew was on their lunch break, and he went up and said g'day to everyone and made sure he wanted to build that bridge between maintenance and operators, which is another obviously critical function as well, which is something that we lacked in our previous maintenance supervisor. That was just green lights in my eyes. So I think it's just showing that interest in what you're looking to step into, especially in those leadership and important roles in the industry. That's going to make the difference in the end as well. That's what made the difference for our good man Kevin, who's doing a great job so far.
Yeah, I think that demonstrating your curiosity, regardless of how confident you are, demonstrates to an employer or to someone that's interviewing you that, hey, this person actually wants to stick about. And I think I've heard that quite strongly from the three of you. Talking about pathways and progression, Peter, what does a real career pathway look like?
There's so many different ways you go. I think BJ talked briefly before about his career and where it's come and gone. But I really want to focus on the environmental space here. So my background is actually in environmental science, which is a little bit different, I guess, in the industry, but it's also not And in environmental science, everyone wants to be a marine biologist. No one says, I want to work at the dump, other than maybe a couple of us. But I think getting the experience here it just sets you up for so many different places, whether it's staying within the industry or whether it's moving on. We've hired environmental interns at student level, and they've stayed on as full-time environmental officers. They've become jack of all trades. They're sampling, they're monitoring, they're reporting. They know how to use multimeters and how to drive a boat and an EWP, which is just not something you're going to get in an environmental consulting role, or maybe a marine biologist will drive a boat, but you're not going to drive an EWP. So there's a lot of different, you can really get a lot of skills in the environmental field. I'm not sure if any of our participants are environmental scientists, but if you are, I'd definitely consider looking in the waste industry. You then get that leg up to go wherever you want because you've got that experience in so many different fields. If you're wanting to stay on, though, I think a lot of our senior officers in our company are actually coming from the environmental field because the operations is so intertwined with compliance in the environmental space. So having that basis in environmental science and environmental law really steps you up into the senior levels as well. And the things that you might have monitored at the start of your career as an environmental scientist, things like water recovery rates, landfill gas, they're really fundamentals in decision making when you get up to the higher levels of the business. So it's really good to have that understanding, and it gives you that foot in the door when you move forward. So that's, I guess, in the professional space. I'm sure someone else could talk more in the yellow gear and pickers space.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I just want to, take 2 seconds to say that that's been my experience as well. I'm also environmentally qualified. I started off as a graduate in November 2014, stepped through consultant, senior consultant, area manager, now Queensland manager, and looking after 3 offices and 18 staff. So that career progression is there for people that thought that they were going to end up in coastal ecosystems. Me, seagrass. I actually know a fair bit about seagrass. Fun facts, but
Alex, opera singer.
Yes, we've all got some funny little foibles. So there is definitely pathways there. Faith, what are some of the entry level to leadership progression that you see?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I've come from different industries. This is my first role working in the waste and recycling industry. And something that I noticed very quickly when I joined this industry was the variety of different types of careers that I've seen. And there's some really non-traditional careers. But some specific examples that we have with our business is we have traineeships and cadet graduate programs. And we have had people starting complete entry-level positions, had no experience in the sector, or really starting their professional career in that role. They've done rotations across the business to understand holistically what the industry and the business looks like. And then they've progressed into operational roles, operating machinery, then moved into yard supervisor, yard manager, and then we've had from there go into state operation managers. And for example, our managing director for the ANZ region, he has been working our business for about 40 years, and he started in a complete entry-level position. And that's one example, but there's lots of different examples quite similar to that. As a more traditional career path. But we've also had people that have started off in safety, and they've gone into more corporate positions. We've had people to start in maintenance, and they've gone into leadership or commercial. We have a lot of movement across different areas of the business. And I think if you come in and you're curious and you want to learn and you take the initiative, you are met with lots of opportunities. And it could look quite different. I think that's been mentioned a couple of times, but it could look quite different to what you might expect, which is great as well.
I might switch it up here and go to a question from Kirsty. Thanks, Kirsty. she's wondering, she's got multiple machinery tickets and recently obtained a heavy rigid license, but due to, a lack of specific industry experience, they're not a desirable candidate. What pathways forward could there be, maybe Tash, to really highlight that they could, they've got the tickets that they need. How do they translate that to being something that's really desirable?
Yep, I think there's a bit of it's a bit of a shame that you think you're not desirable. I think that it can just be around the right job at the right time. How much of any job application process can be around timing. So in our different 23 divisions we've got across Australia, we can sometimes absolutely hire somebody with no experience, and we can hire you on attitude because we've got those trainers available and a more stable team, and we can take 3 to 6 months to train and develop you. But in other vacancies, we absolutely do need to recruit someone who's going to hit the ground running. So just being aware of the timing. It's not you, it's not forever. It might just be today, that job, that location, that you're not quite there. But look out for some keywords. Faith sort of talked about it earlier. I know all of the other team members have as well, but look for development, trainee, graduate, training available. Look for those catchphrases. We've got an ad up at the moment on the Sunshine Coast, which has the word development in the title. It's a driver development role. So you really do only need your tickets. We can teach you the rest. And it's very clear in that job ad that that's what we're looking for. Whereas if you see an ad that says 5 years experience, or we're really looking for this as our ideal, don't get your hopes up too soon, I think is probably the advice. So, we all want to be a CEO one day, maybe, or, we want to be opera singers, or, my son thinks he's going to be the goalkeeper for Manchester United. He's 11. So it's great to have goals, right? And to know where you want to be, but don't be afraid of some of those stepping stone opportunities on what's going to get you there. And don't be too proud to take that smaller opportunity that can then lead you there in future.
Can I butt in there, Natasha, just for Kirsty, for some practical advice there? We've had people come into our business in a labourer or a picker role from accounting, those sort of things, where they've burnt out at that level, in that sort of role, and said, I want to do something with my hands. So they've come into those labour roles, and a lot of them are now, driving Moxies, driving dozers. So, that's a great foot in the door is through those. They may seem like a menial role, but they're actually incredibly valuable and a great stepping stone. At BMI, we advertise those through labour hire companies. So that's probably your best bet.
Can I actually also add something too? We, and I don't know if everybody on the panel is from all around the state or from other regions, but sometimes thinking slightly outside the box of location actually can be a really critical opportunity. There are so many challenges getting people to even work an hour outside of, your metropolitan corners, let alone in, say, Charters Towers or Mount Isa. If you're actually someone who wants a bit of an adventure and you're not stuck to the area you currently live in, there is so much opportunity to take jobs, and those jobs can often also end up being really diverse. I've got a team who will often end up, flying up to the Western Queensland or the middle or central New South Wales because they can't get anybody on the ground. And all of a sudden, I find myself running a gatehouse and being the temporary waste coordinator of a transfer station in far north Queensland for 6 weeks while they go through a recruitment process. If you've got that flexibility, and sometimes it might only be for 12 months, but that also might help to build out that resume as well if you want to come back to a more central sort of, southeast corner place.
Yeah, thank you, Lacey. I was just about to build on that, and from a regional perspective, there, Queensland is a wildly different place outside the 80% of us that live in this southeast corner, and everybody else. The tyranny of distance is just crazy. So there is there is a lot of opportunity that is available. And I think I'll come to you in a second, Tash, because you had some interesting points on this when we had our prepping discussion about how to identify that you're interested in that regional. But I would also like to add, Julana's asked a question about international skilled professionals who have waste industry experience, even in management, and what are the pathways and starting positions in Australia. And it's really competitive, and not every company I know offers sponsorship or anything like that. So highlighting, and I think I'm already starting to take what Tash will say, but highlighting why you are interested in a regional experience, and what specifically about it would indicate to someone in recruiting to say, hey, you are actually interested in this particular role. You're not just applying for anything willy-nilly. But Tash, I might stop stealing your answer.
I think that Lacey's onto it. The population in some of these regional towns versus the skill or previous experience is a little bit skewed. So we're a big company. We're everywhere from Darwin, Cairns, Mount Isa. Love the example. Looking for people to work in Moranbah at the moment, and half of us don't even know how to pronounce it, let alone where it is.
You got it right. You're okay.
Yeah, thank you. So I do think that there's huge opportunity all across Australia, but especially in Queensland, if you're willing to put your hand up and go remote. But where you've got to just be careful is, don't just post and pray and fling your CV out and hope that the employer is going to be your pathway to not only just getting the job, but also accommodation and transport. Have a really good think about what you're looking for work-life balance wise, and then reverse engineer it from there. Do I want to live on the coast? Do I want to live in the country? Am I looking to save money? Do I already have family and friends in that location? Is it a 6-month move with hope to go somewhere else? And I do think what is important too is around that work status is your visa status, your work rights. As much as some of us would love to hire people without full work rights, it's not something that we can do. Some regional parts of Australia and some corporations allow for working holiday visas or skills visas. So I think just read the small print as well, because we would love to have those conversations, but then some of us have restrictions where we can't do that. So most of us will write a good job ad to attract and engage the people that are transferable, but do look at regional, because there can sometimes be different opportunities and you've got to be in it to win it. So put a good application in, write a good CV, have a cover letter, and the rest can be history.
Great, thank you. I'm going to combine two questions here about changes recently in the waste industry and where do people see jobs popping up in. And then there was a more specific question about e-waste sector. Is that one of the fast growing areas? I'll throw it out there. Anyone want to put their hand up and answer that? Matt, maybe you've got a bit of a perspective on diversifying industries a bit, and then Lacey maybe?
I don't know if I'm going to be the best person to answer that question. I can touch on the e-waste side of things. Absolutely. I think everybody will also agree that batteries is really the bane of everybody's existence when it comes to the recycling industry as well too. So, as an industry, we're still sort of on the lookout for new technologies and new ways to stop these things ending up in the waste stream.
And that also probably touches on IT roles a little bit as well, getting into that e-waste kind of space. They definitely are available. Each company needs an IT support, but also in the design phase and broader circular economy space, we need people with an understanding of how information technology kind of comes together, and therefore what product design is actually good to ensure that our materials can be reused in the future. So Lacey, your perspective?
Look, I think government investment is often a really good indicator of where jobs are actually going to pop up. You know, for the last couple of years, we have, to Matthew's point, seen investment into batteries and e-waste and solar, and we've subsequently seen jobs popping up in those sectors. At the moment in Queensland, we've got some really good investment going into sort of boosting infrastructure. So I think you're going to start to see a lot of opportunity coming up with a lot of picking stations and MRFs and, you know, all of those sort of processing type plants actually coming online. So less in the yellow machines, as much as coming into roles that are more targeted towards particular waste streams. I do think we're also seeing a little bit of a shift in that a lot of organisations who would historically use, you know, third-party consultants and specialists are now internalising a lot of those roles that sit in environment, to Peter's point, in internal monitoring. You know, so that opportunity to internalise means that rather than the traditional sector, the commercial sector of industry, where most of us sit or have worked, you're seeing a lot more opportunity coming up in local government as well as state government. I think they're the roles, rather than traditional driving the trucks, you know, driving the plant, that we're going to see more of. So any transferable skills that come from transport and manufacturing, I think, are going to be the ones that are going to have more opportunity in our sector in the next couple of years.
Thank you. Faith, Beck finds that stereotyping is still a big issue within our industry. I will open this up to Lacey as well, but I'll go to Faith first. How do you overcome some of those stereotypes that, you know, we tend to experience or have experienced in the past in this industry?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think it comes back to, I think sometimes when you're going forward for an interview, hopefully this isn't the case, but sometimes you do come up against scenarios where people might be making assumptions, you know, like, oh, it's a dirty environment, so, you know, if you're a female, you might not enjoy it as much. And we are, you know, we want to be moving away from that, of course, because as we know, we need a really diverse workforce to be able to work towards success. But I think really, again, going back to highlighting why you want to work for the business and highlighting why you're interested in these roles, and really making that connection goes a really long way as well. And showing that you've researched the sector or the industry, and you know, and why you're interested. I think that is a really key thing. I don't know if Natasha or Lacey, you have anything else that you wanted to add to that?
Look, I think, yep, stereotyping happens. It happens in every industry. It's not just our industry. I'm a chick who owns a company in the waste industry. And interestingly, my team is 93% female, which is a little unusual. However, I think if you're the right person for the role, if you are applying for a role and they don't want to hire you because of age, race, gender, then they're not the right fit for you, frankly. And I think there are avenues that can be followed. I would like to think that we are seeing a very large shift. I think the diversity of the faces on the call today in terms of gender are probably indicative of that shift as well. Sorry, boys, you're outnumbered today. But I think making it clear the role you want. If you're applying for a dirty role, make it clear that, you know, that's something you're keen for and why you're interested in the job. And the right employer is going to go, hey, heck yeah, I'm going to hire, you know, someone who's older, younger, shorter, taller, male, female, whatever those parameters are, because they want the job and they've made it clear to me why they want the job. But yes, stereotyping is going to exist. It's a thing. It's not just waste, it's everywhere.
Yeah, I'll jump on that as well, Lacey. Like, I was sort of going to refer to the panel and obviously a slightly more local perspective. Like some of the best operators we have are female, and they're young and they're old, and there's a broad spectrum in the waste industry of people who are highly, highly capable. And yeah, I like to think it's a limited sort of scenario where it's going to be discrimination based between genders and that sort of thing. But I think it's a really good point to make, is that if there's a company that's going to discriminate, you probably don't want to work there anyway. And yeah, best of luck to them. They'll fizzle out as times move on, because like as we know, waste doesn't stop. So there's, in the 10 years I was driving trucks, there was no women that tore down 2 power lines at the same place in the front lift. There was only one person that did it. So, some of the best operators and people I've known in the industry have been female. If that's sort of what I didn't see who was asking the question, if that's sort of the discrimination they're pointing to, I think the point is, if there's someone or a business that's discriminating by gender, if that's what the case is, steer clear, because they won't last in the industry. It's not what the signs of the times are, evident by the panel right now of the highly capable men and mostly women that are representing the industry from all different aspects. So I think it's a good point to make that you don't want to be around those places anyway.
Yeah, thanks, Vijay. And yeah, the shape of it is all changing. So it's really kind of cool to experience. Can I get a time check, please, Tash? Do we have time for a couple more questions? Sorry, Tash David, not Tash Breyer.
You're going quite well. I think because we've actually been taking questions as you go.
Yeah.
So I did have quite a lot of time allocated for questions. So if we're going to wrap at 2:30, we've got plenty of time for more discussion.
Too easy. I'm just skimming back through. We had somebody ask about micro-credentials. I know Alison is going to talk a little bit about that right at the end. So there's definitely some potential there. How about we've talked about we've talked about transferable skills, but maybe BJ, what technical skills would be most valuable for you at the moment?
Yeah, so it's kind of the theme is that there's a lot of different requirements, site specific to us, but the capability to be mechanically have a mechanical aptitude on site just in general is a highly valued skill, because we've got 2 different balers on site that run completely different one to the other. We've got multiple different PME conveyor systems, optical sorters. So the best thing sort of in the automated recycling industry, from my perspective, is not necessarily a ticket. It's more of just an aptitude. If you have that, you can change the chain on your bicycle type of mentality, you can apply it to these different machines and different automation systems that we have here. So I think that's sort of the broadest brush that I could paint it with, as far as looking at it from a processing type situation. Because unless you have directly transferable skills, which is not a great deal of industries, there's small amounts of automation in agriculture and that sort of thing, you're not going to come in and understand how an optical sorter makes a definition between PET clear and HDPE natural, for example. You'll gain that knowledge by industry experience once you get that foot in the door as well.
Matt, do you have anything to add to that? Technical skills that you're kind of after, what do you look for?
Yeah, probably better question for my operations manager or my maintenance manager, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's all right. Peter, you look like you had a thought.
I've always got thoughts. From a HSE side of things and in the supervisor and management level, where the IT skills is really important. The data is becoming everything in this industry, especially when you're adding in waste levies and those sort of things that Lacey's well versed in. We have to be able to manage that data. We have to be able to keep records. There's so much liability as well from a safety environment perspective. So I can see a lot of those sort of skills increasing in importance. Everything's becoming digitized. Everything's on an iPad nowadays. So being able to do those, be able to use that technology, and even if you've got ideas to implement new technology in that space for improved data management, that's incredibly valuable and emerging.
In that data management perspective, we do have Chris that's really, really keen on an IT role, but more broadly for any roles. Tash and Faith, where are you advertising? Where can we find these jobs? Let's start with Tash.
Thank you. So for JJ's group, We advertise on Seek predominantly. It is unfortunately still the largest job board in Australia. So we have an excellent careers page though, and I do think most companies do quite well with that on their websites now. It's also a good way to learn a little bit more about the company and some of the other topics we talked about around what waste streams we're in, what services we provide, what brands you might recognize, the diversity, locations, those things. So start on a website. Seek is definitely still there. And look at, your algorithms. Like I sort of just talked about AI earlier. It's probably quite the front of my mind at the moment because a lot of these systems will, even without you knowing, they're sending you an algorithm or they're using AI. We don't. We look at every single CV. We're a bit old school. But your job boards is where to have a look. We absolutely still work with Workforce Connect kind of places. We work with local council. Sometimes you'll hear about a job from a mate at a barbecue. Just keep your ears to the ground because you just don't know what you don't know. We still advertise old school. We'll put a notice on the front fence of the depot. It still works. So Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, as Peter said, we're much more digital than ever before. So we're looking for people in all the different places they may be. So it may be a waste forum or a local council forum or Garbo's United on Facebook. There's lots of places that you can go to see, but I would say job boards is probably the best place to go for an active vacancy.
And Faith?
Yeah, very similar. I mean, there's lots of different places that we are advertising our roles, but if you want to have a consistent place where you can look and just see all of our roles, definitely our career site on our website will have all the positions that we have across all the different regions. So if you're someone who's open to exploring opportunities in different areas, that's a really great source of truth. We predominantly advertise on Seek as well, but definitely the career site is a great one-stop place to see everything.
Is anyone advertising right now?
We're always advertising.
Peter?
Definitely some of the labour hire companies is a great way to start. We tend to hire a lot of people through labour hire agencies and then move them on to permanent if we find them being suitable. So companies like Find Me and Staff Australia, those sort of companies definitely worth looking at. In other roles, we use Seek as well. So that's the big ticket one.
Anyone else?
We're not recruiting at the moment, but we have a large range of customers who are recruiting at the moment. So we've got customers who are looking for gatehouse staff, excavator operators, experienced recyclers, and deck hands to come out and stand and actually help customers. So the focus for a lot of our customers is people with customer experience who are happy to stand in front of a person with their load of stuff and go, hey, this is how you sort it. Let me help you unload. Let me now separate those things and maybe dismantle that table and shove it in the tip shop. We find there's a lot of those for our regional customers that are available at the moment.
And an additional skill, how to go, left hand down, right hand down to reverse into a waste transfer station space as well.
Look, but we should never have our staff getting in a customer's vehicle
or reverse that vehicle,
well, Alex.
Yes, spotting, not doing. Personally, I'm about to put up an ad for an environmental consultant and a field officer as well. So, there's jobs around. We do have a bit of a broader question from Kieran. Thank you for this. With Brisbane preparing for the 2032 Olympics, how is the waste and recycling industry planning to scale its infrastructure and circular economy systems to meet increased demands while achieving those sustainability targets? What new skill sets do you think we're going to need? I think I'll flesh that out just a little bit more. And it's not just Olympics. We've got broader national targets of to meet in waste minimisation. So increasing federally passed down mandates to not send waste product overseas. So there is more and more on board recovery that needs to happen. Companies like ResourceCo are engaging in this kind of space. So there's there are things shifting and things changing, and the Olympics, I guess, is a small driver, but there's a lot of drive regardless, because landfill cells are filling up. Does anyone want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. The Olympics is obviously a consideration, being local to Brisbane, Sunshine Coast area as well. The way we would treat that obviously is just like any other massive holiday period, and just extend hours, operate, etc. But obviously creates that back end issue, like you said, Alex. We have more product in means more product out, and then that's the bottleneck. I've been sort of pushing recently within our business to see what's next. Are we going to continually offload to outsourced companies, the Vizies and the Australian recyclers of the world? Are we pushing more to export? What's next for the business? So I think it's a good question to raise, and maybe 2032 is just a target for discussion for now, but it's sort of just it's going to be a target regardless. I think we're going to be needing to recycle in Australia onshore instead of export. It's not going to be financially viable to send stuff overseas forever. And then you have multiple bottlenecks where it's getting the transport to the ports, which ports are going to, and if you're going to Malaysia versus India, and then Malaysia turns off, your whole P&L is going to be upside down for 6 months. So it's a bottleneck that we're sort of, it's a good bottleneck to have. It means there's a lot more recycling happening in country, but we need to discuss as an industry at a really high level what's next. Are we investing in Australia? And that's, as Lacey said, that's going to be interesting to see where the government grants start rolling out in the next sort of 5 to 10 years, and maybe that'll be a pusher, is the Olympics coming up, because it's going to be a massive turnover of a lot of single-use products and a lot of recyclable products, and where's it all going to go? So it's a worthwhile point to make, but I think it'll come down to where the industry is sort of projected anyway.
Yeah.
If I can jump in, I think it's such a massive opportunity at the moment. It's something that people don't realise about the industry in Australia, specifically in Queensland. We are so far behind here, and the technology is really changing. So if you take New South Wales, for example, I believe their landfills are scheduled to be full by 2030. So things are going to have to change. ResourceGo is a really good example. I love what I do. I get to do tours and show people this awesome technology. This technology has existed for decades. It's just that we're so far behind in Australia, unfortunately. So there's a lot of opportunity there. There's a lot more appetite with the government for things like waste to energy. We're going to start seeing more and more of those facilities pop up. So great time to get into the industry.
Yeah, thank you. I do have a bit of a curly question, Beck. Thank you for this. And I think I'll pitch it towards Tash, as that's who she's asked of, but also to Lacey and maybe Peter. The question is about skills around diffusion and interaction, with the public or with customers. Weighbridge aggression and aggression for our poor sales teams on the phones. How do we, why, she's asked, why wouldn't this be seen as a job requirement to have this skill? But more broadly, what would you suggest to individuals to highlight if that is a skill that they think that they do have or can cope with? Tash, I might open with you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was actually something I was thinking about when people were talking earlier about, the thirst for change. And we've got to remember that the waste comes from our population. None of us on this call are in charge of what goes in the bin or what goes in landfill or what goes to recycling. So just, having that opportunity to put the mirror up sometimes and think about what you're putting in your bin. And if every one of us does that, it would be easier without going too political or ranty. But absolutely, customer service the world is so different now to what it used to be. And your keyboard warriors on social media and people who've got an opinion and their opinion is more valid than somebody else's opinion, and it just goes around in circles, and it is really, really tough. Customer service isn't what it was when I grew up. The customer is always right, and treat people with respect and ask questions. Don't give things, don't tell, show, don't tell. But our customer service team, the range of inquiries we get on a day is phenomenal. And I think patience and resilience are two very important things in the workplace today. I think they're very important in the world today. But we also have more stress and more anxiety than we probably have before. So I think treat people as you want to be treated is the easiest thing to say, but we do give our customer service teams quite a bit of support, and we don't want to be talking to customers or members of the community who are angry or aggressive. And just to divert that slightly, one of the things that our drivers say is the best part of their job is the community that they work in. The engagement, the relationships, the people waving, people asking questions, and everyone that I talk to about some of the best things about their job is that interaction. But the answer is the same of what's the hardest part of their job. So I don't think that's a clear-cut answer, but I do think it is something we all do need to be aware of, is how we talk to people and communicate with people in our day-to-day lives. And remember that the person at the end of the phone isn't necessarily the counsel or the change maker. They're just somebody who's taking your call and trying to help you with that issue right there and then. But sometimes it's not a black and white answer either. It's and especially in waste and recycling, things change every day. The weather. I'll just give you an example that I think you might find humorous, because I think we're all in Queensland. So it's raining a little bit, right? There's the floodwaters. There's a few things happening. We had a complaint recently, or somebody get in touch with us because the floodwater has risen quite significantly in this town, and we couldn't get in to collect their weekly bin collection. And so they contacted us to let us know that they weren't happy that we didn't collect their bin. But the roads are so flooded. We're not waste boats. We're waste trucks at the moment. So the person that took the call obviously was a little shaken. This person was very, very angry. And the very next day was a photo in the local newspaper of a crocodile swimming across this flooded water. So the safety of our employees is really, really important. The sanitation side of things is really important too. We want to get to your waste as soon as we can. So just keeping people calm and having a bit of realism around the safety. But I thought that crocodile across the lake, and you could see the wheelie bin on the other side. And it's like, do you really think that we're going to drive our truck through that water to flip that bin with the crocodile there? Like, just a little bit of common sense every now and again would be lovely, but it is 2026. So that one I think is just a little bit fun as a laugh.
Yeah. Peter, I might ask you from a training and safety perspective, while having the aptitude for diffusion, how do we support that with the training that we would give our waste weighbridge operators? I know that your sites have a slightly different clientele. They're commercial operators that, may visit a few times a day, and you sometimes have to reject a load because it's not got, something acceptable in it. How do you train your customer service folk?
Yeah, it is difficult. We do a lot of mental health training. We've got mental health first aiders and those sort of things in place. But I think a big part of it is not necessarily the formal training, but it's the support behind it. So if you're, a frontline worker and someone is being aggressive, you've got to know that you've got that support of your supervisor, of your manager, of the senior management behind you. And I think it's just having that fallback position is really valuable in keeping our frontline people, mentally safe, more so than being able to actually give them a lot. There's definitely some skills, but I think a big part of it is that fallback. And the industry is really good at providing that support. Well, I like to think that BMI is anyway. But that being said, if you do have to have a certain amount of resilience to be able to do these roles. Like we talked about, it is dirty, it is smelly, and there are grumpy people. So if that's not the sort of industry that you can work in, then it's probably not the right sort of place to stay with. And I know that's not the politically correct answer, but we've all got the right place to work, I guess.
Yeah, and I can certainly resonate with that this week. I took a call at 6:15 in the morning, trying to make my daughter her bowl of Weet-Bix from a staff member who was doing some bin checks in Queensland somewhere, and had a very, very grumpy interaction with a resident that wasn't happy about their bin being looked in. So we do in all of our companies have that want to look after our people. So even if there's not specific formal training there is certainly an appreciation that there's the need for debriefing and support through the management as well. Lacey, you guys do a bit of training of weighbridge operators as well. What do you equip your teams with?
So look, I think it's really critical that if you're in any administrative role or customer service role, whether you're on plant, whether you're in a bridge, whether you're back office, that now that training incorporates an understanding of how to de-escalate situations and how to support customers and how to take the tone down a little bit. So look, I would say to Beck, if you've got a resume and you're actually prioritizing, the ability to manage those difficult conversations, lean into customer service, lean into the customer service skill, because a gatehouse weighbridge person who knows how to de-escalate a customer, who knows how to give great customer service, even if maybe they're not as great at identifying the load, they are worth their weight in gold. And we're seeing a real shift. So we spend quite a lot of time every year refreshing gatehouse staff all over the country to know what buttons to press and know how to assess a load, but also in how do I change my body language to de-escalate? Uncross your arms. How do I speak to a customer when they are having a bad day? How do I take away opportunities and learnings for my own mental health and well-being to understand that it actually isn't about me? The customer's having a crappy day and I bear the brunt of it. So we actually spend a lot of time training teams at facilities to understand how to make the transactional experience easier, because a well-educated staff member can make a well-educated customer, and your best customer is one who knows what's expected of them, who knows what to do. And for anyone who's on the call who's been to their local landfill or transfer station, if you've been there a couple of times, you know that you go up and you talk to the gatehouse and the weighbridge, and they grab your ticket and they take your weight, and you go and drop your stuff and you drive out and you pay, and then you say farewell, depending on the transfer station or landfill you go to. The customer that knows that routine is less likely to be cranky, but a great person in the gatehouse who can have a joke and de-escalate that person might be having a bad day, absolutely worth their weight in gold. So I would say if you're applying for those jobs and don't feel like you're getting them, lean into customer service rather than de-escalation, because it might not be a back office admin role, but I cannot find enough people who want to work in weighbridges across this country who really embrace having that skill, that they are like hen's teeth and they're absolutely critical.
Absolutely. Hang on. What is your most selling product from the waste, and is it fuel like gas is being made? Matt? Do we have a very fast selling product in the waste industry, and is it fuel?
Fuel's massive. But I guess something we specialize in is we turn essentially rubbish into process engineered fuel that goes to high energy industries, think cement kilns, and they use our fuel instead of fossil fuel. So, really good news story. As far as I'm concerned, we're not just stopping things from going to landfill, we're reducing the reliance on fossil fuel. I guess the cement industry in Australia, there's four, I think three on the mainland, one in Tassie, and they're all, pretty keen to move into process engineered fuel. They may just need to change things with their intake, but there's lots of different applications, I guess, for something like process engineered fuel. As I mentioned before, we are just so far behind here. And it's funny that I speak to some people and we just have that mindset of burning rubbish. Maybe it is better that it just goes into landfill, but it doesn't work like that. I don't want to turn this into a sales spiel, but I think you burn a ton of our fuel compared to fossil fuel is about a ton of carbon removed from the atmosphere. So it is a really good news story, and there's lots of applications that we're exploring, and thankfully the governments around Australia are exploring as well too.
BJ, what's your most popular product?
By volume, it's fibre. That's the quick answer. So we send paper down to Brisbane, Runcorn, GRG Visy. They do the physical recycling in country, and our cardboard goes direct to exports, going to India currently, but it's between India, Malaysia, Vietnam. Highest commodity pricing is on aluminium, just by makeup of the product. You know, a bale of that, about 50,000 cans. You take the CDS into account that Alex and team always give us really good rates on. And that's the highest commodity stream that we have going out is aluminium, just by the pliability and recycling capabilities of the product as well.
Faith?
So we just do metal. So for us, it's going to be ferrous. So mainly iron and steel for us is the largest quantity.
Mm-hmm. And just as an aside, if anybody ever gets to see a metal processing facility one day, the great big car mulches that they've got on site, they're so impressive. They're very cool. If people like big whirring loud machines, metal recycling is pretty cool, as is all the other recycling facilities. I'm not knocking what a Resource Co and WRIQ do, but there's certainly some cool things in metals as well. I might unless there's any other major questions from anyone, can I do a 1-minute rapid round of what's your pearl of wisdom for anybody listening today about coming into the industry, making an impression, lasting the distance? Peter.
I guess it's take a chance. Give whatever opportunity you get given a go, whether it's big or small. Any little foot in the door is going to be helpful, and even if it's dirty, it's smelly, and it's not where you're going to stay, you'll learn something, and you'll have a great story to tell.
Fantastic, BJ.
Yeah, much in the similar vein as Peter. If this is an industry you want to come into, the likely case is that you'll start from a sort of a bottom-up type position, depending on where you get your foot in that door. But hard work doesn't go unrecognised either. So if you're wanting to be in this industry and this is your first stop as a MRF in the QC position at pre-sort, you work the best out of all four in that pre-sort room. That's not where you're going to spend a lot of time. You'll be moved down the back and progress very quickly. So hard work doesn't go unnoticed. Is sort of the point I would put out.
Tash?
Yeah, it's a nice open question, Alex. Thank you. But I suppose I want to sort of throw the future of work out there. Jobs that exist now maybe didn't exist 20 years ago. And so what's going to happen 20 years from now too, and the technology and the innovation and the politics around the waste and recycling industry. So absolutely, you need to be able to drive a truck, but you also need to be able to use an iPad or a tablet at the same time, where there's so much compliance, there's so much safety. The technology on a truck is phenomenal. So it's not just as simple as driving the truck anymore, as an example. So I think about not just what you want to be doing now, but where the industry is going to go. We are essential services. We do not stop. And I also just think keep that in mind in that vein. Easter's coming up. You want your wheelie bin collected or whatever else is going on. We don't get those long weekends on Fraser. We work 365 days. It's 24/7 in a lot of locations too. So there is the essential in that essential services, but think about what the future is going to hold and how we can all individually contribute to that. But the future is bright, I think, in the waste industry. A lot of work to come.
Thank you. Matt?
I think just for me, it's a fantastic industry. It's a really good opportunity, filled with, the industry is filled with, genuine soil of the earth people that want to make a difference. I think if you look across the board here, a lot of, different businesses will have retention of people that have been working there for 10, 20, 30 years. And that only happens when, people are really happy to get up and, put their boots on in the morning. I spoke about the fact that the industry is always changing. I think personally for me, I've worked in a lot of industries. I'm going to be honest about this. I got bored very quickly. I'm 6 or 7 years down the track, and it's not happening. And like I say, I'm still learning new things every day. But the other thing that, I guess I'm really genuine about is I get to go home at the end of every day and I look at my kids and I know I'm making a difference for their future. But not just that, the clients that I speak to, I'm making a difference for their businesses, whether it's coming to their sustainability targets or their bottom line. So yeah, it's a great industry to work in.
Thank you. Faith.
Yeah, I think my biggest pearl of wisdom is, especially within this industry, attitude often takes you much further than experience. So there's always new things to learn. So stay curious, ask questions, and be proactive. It will take you far.
Fantastic. And Lacey.
Look, I would say just be yourself. No bullshit. We are an industry that can pick it. There's nothing better than someone that is authentic and honest about what they do and don't like, what they are and aren't good at. If you do that and you stay curious, like everybody on the call has said, yeah, it's an industry you'll never leave. You'll just keep, transitioning to new fun things.
Thank you so much, everyone. Such valuable insight, amazing people to hear from. So, Alison, I'm going to hand back to you.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you to all of our panels for sharing their time and their insights. And thank you, everyone who's attended the webinar, for joining us for this discussion. So our industry is growing rapidly, and conversations like today's are a really important part of connecting people with meaningful career opportunities. So we're conducting a short post-webinar survey after the session today, but this survey is actually a survey for you to opt in if you'd like to be connected with employers in the waste and recycling industry. So we're looking to facilitate some matchmaking between employers who are currently hiring and participants who are currently interested in roles. If you opt in, we'll ask you to provide your contact details, your CV, and any relevant skills or certifications you've got so that we can help to connect you with the right opportunities. I'm also pleased to share that WRIQ will soon be launching our micro-credentials pilot program. So that is designed specifically for the waste and recycling industry. We've been developing 4 short courses to help people build practical and skills that are relevant to our sector. So pre-enrollments are open now. You can go to the website shown on your screen and put your name down. The courses will start at the end of April, and during the pilot stage, participants will actually be able to complete these courses and attain the certificates completely free of charge. So for more information about all of these opportunities will be included in a follow-up email after today's session. Thank you again so much to our panel for sharing their expertise, and thank you to everyone who joined us today. We hope this session has provided you with some useful insight.